That's crazy. There's not as many people. I don't think they do.
So yeah, that's how our month has been going.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, everybody does.
Which is where I should be right now. I hope I can beat this, guys. I don't want to embarrass anybody.
Krista, get ice cream. Are you ready?
Yes, we do.
Probably is. I got
I
one.
think so.
Well, I'm going to just try to read my scratch, but
That was underneath this desk here, so
If you want to pass it off, just let me know.
I'm sure it has something to do
is there anything,
Keep in mind, short tonight.
anything additional to add to the flood?
No, unless they want.
Family? Nobody's
I know nobody else has one of these anyplace in this facility.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are talking composting, right?
What a nice looking group tonight.
I got it, Chip.
What, you're not excited about composting?
Beatrice.
It's
I know, yeah, I know.
Just go with that.
Did I turn my phone off?
Call the Apache Junction City Council meeting to order. The invocation will be led by Councilmember Rizzi and the pledge by Councilmember Waldron.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us this opportunity to serve our community. Please guide us in making the best decisions that we can. We ask that you keep a watchful eye over our first responders, our search and rescue crews, and our military men and women. Please keep them safe and out of harm's way. We also ask for your protection over all of our hotshot fire crews that are fighting wildfires across our state and across our beautiful nation. Father, please provide peace for the family members of the victims of the Payson flash flood, and also for the family members of the plane crash at Falcon Field. We ask our community to keep these families in their thoughts and prayers. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Surtee,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Barker,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Present.
Councilmember Struble,
Here.
Councilmember Waldron.
Here.
All members present, you have a quorum, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that the consent agenda be accepted as presented and that the receipt of the annual report of the Apache Junction Public Library Board of Trustees for 2016-17 fiscal year be acknowledged, and that the appointment of Michael Weaver to the position of Public Works Director be ratified.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Roll call.
Councilmember Evans, Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
Okay, we have two proclamations. The first one is designating August as Child Support Awareness Month. Whereas the city of Apache Junction joins the nation in recognizing August as Child Support Awareness Month and reaffirms its commitment to strengthening Arizona's families by providing child support services to improve the economic stability and well-being of children. And whereas Child Support Awareness Month salutes the diligent working parents who spend time with their child and who make regular child support payments to safeguard their children's future. And whereas community partnerships serve children and families through a variety of programs and targeted resources which help support Arizonans by promoting awareness of needs and assistance to meet those needs while encouraging individual responsibility and working towards greater self-sufficiency. And whereas a child who receives emotional and financial support is more likely to feel safe and secure and are better equipped with the courage to be their very best in life. And whereas strengthening individuals and families with an emphasis on fiscal responsibility promotes the safety and well-being of children, provides stability, improves the lives of children, and provides opportunities for families to be able to enhance their children's future. And whereas an informed parent can help make the child support system work. And with the state, local, and tribal child support programs, legislatures and courts rallying to improve collaborative efforts for families. Now therefore, I, Jeff Surtee, Mayor of the City of Apache Junction, Arizona, do hereby proclaim August 2017 as Child Support Awareness Month.
And Your Honor, Mr. Darren Sweet had indicated he would be here tonight to accept the proclamation. I do not know him, so he may be in the, oh, there you are. There you go.
Sorry.
We don't want to photo bomb.
Because I have to
Yeah, we end up photo bombing if we're.
Hey, Al, isn't the best life to get back a little bit?
Scoot back against.
Scoot back.
Yeah,
Get under.
yeah, get back right by the
Take about
mayor's.
2 steps back.
Yeah.
There you go. There you
That's the
go.
best line.
There you go.
Sorry.
I'm ducking and weaving.
Welcome. Oh, yeah.
So we have one more proclamation, if Mike and if you guys can come forward. This is for National Purple Heart Day. Whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in the United States in present use, and whereas General George Washington established the Purple Heart during the Revolutionary War in Newburgh, New York on August 7th, 1782 as an incentive for members of the Continental Army. Whereas the Purple Heart was the first award made available to the common soldier to recognize outstanding valor or merit. And whereas the Purple Heart is a combat decoration that is awarded to living military members of the United States Armed Forces who are wounded by an instrument of war in the hands of the enemy, or that is awarded posthumously to the next of kin in the name of those who were killed in action or who died from wounds received in action. And whereas recipients of the Purple Heart know the meaning of sacrifice in the preservation of the United States of America and national interests at home and abroad. And whereas there are approximately 1.7 million Purple Heart recipients in our nation's history, many of whom are from the state of Arizona. And whereas Apache Junction has the highest number of veterans in Pinal County, many of whom have been decorated by presentation of the Purple Heart Medal. The blessings of freedom and democracy we enjoy today are the direct result of the courage and sacrifice of generations of Americans. Whereas this year marks the 235th anniversary of the establishment of the Purple Heart by General George Washington and the city of Apache Junction is proud to honor the recipients of this exceptional honor. Now therefore, I, Jeff Surdy, Mayor of Apache Junction, Arizona, do hereby proclaim August 7, 2017 as National Purple Hearts Day. And Mike and Craig are here to accept this. And we're actually going to give a little more when I talk about the announcements. So. Announcements and current events from the council. Anyone?
It's hot.
I cool right now.
I would just like to thank the staff and all the volunteers that participated and helped out at the July 4th celebration. And also, as a Kiwanis member, we had a booth and we had a number of our distinguished citizens allow us to have people throw wet sponges at them, and I would really extend my appreciation to them for that. And it was a great event, and once again, the fireworks were amazing, and just a really good night. Krista.
Just to go off what Jeff said, just want to thank our partnership with Republic Services so much, and just what an incredible fireworks show, and without them, it wouldn't happen. So we just need to make sure that we're always appreciating and letting them know how much, thanking them and how much we appreciate it. Thank you so much for that great celebration.
Okay. Regarding the Purple Heart Day, out across from the focal point, on the other half of the focal point where the flags are, on August 7th, I believe it's going to be at 7 in the evening, or 6 or 7 in the evening. It'll be in the paper. There's going to be a presentation out there, so it would be good. We barely had a turnout last year. This year, we're aware of it. Let's have a big turnout out there this year. Also, a couple things. I believe there's going to be a wing cook-off. We've already had a burger cook-off and another type cook-off. This is going to be at the Hitching Post. I think there's going to be 7 or 8 different restaurants cooking wings sometime this Sunday afternoon. I'm not sure. Also, it's been interesting at, a lot of people want to know what's going on in Apache Junction. At Lucky Strikes this year, it used to be at Phillies, but they're unfortunately closed for now. We have Apache Junction Idol, which is like a little mini version of American Idol. This year it's called Lucky Strikes Idol. And that's every Sunday at 4 o'clock. And they've already had the country. There's 2 winners from country. They're doing classic rock now. There'll be 2 winners from that will advance, and then there'll be the old-time rock and roll. And then in September, they'll have a sing-off of that, and there'll be this year's Apache Junction Idol. It's pretty cool, and the audience really gets into it. And you guys can come vote, too. It's the audience votes on it. And tomorrow evening, we're doing a community meeting in the Royal Palm area. It's going to be at St. George's Catholic Church at 6:30, if you live in that area. And I'm also encouraging anyone else, if you live in an area and you would like to have a meeting that previously doesn't have one, for instance, around the Moose Lodge, there would be a place for those folks. A lot of places don't have clubhouses, so we'll have to make arrangements at schools or organizations like that. So get with Al Bravo or myself if anyone wants to have a community meeting. Also, as long as I've been here, I don't know anybody in our Little League system that has ever won a state championship. We've won high school championships before, but just two days ago?
2 days ago,
the
Monday night.
Apache Junction Junior Girls, which is basically the 13-year-olds, won the state championship. Now, luckily, the regionals are now in Tucson, so there's not a lot of expense. But they could still use money for hotels, and I think Bryant's going to talk about this. If they come out of that, they go to Seattle, then we definitely need to get together as a community and help them. So, Bryant, we're going to do the city manager's report next, if you want to mention that, so.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Bryant Powell, City Manager. We'll jump right into that. So Al Bravo just received information about that. Initially, so this is the equivalent of the Western Regional Tournament. They've already won like the state tournament, and so they'll be playing Alaska, a team from Alaska, on Thursday night in Tucson, and they'll play the winner of the Utah and Southern California team if they win, when we win, on that Friday night. So there are some expenses. We just got word this afternoon about a GoFundMe page that's being started. The Little League Organization National does cover some of the gas, but does not cover the lodging. So there'll be some hotel rooms for the teams that I know the Little League organization would very much appreciate. So we'll start letting folks know about that. There is some expenses where when they win the state and have to go big time and play the national tournament, and I hope then there'll be some more. So we're super proud of them, and we wish them the very, very best. I also want to thank you tonight for the support to me and our staff, and to our new Public Works Director. Thank you for the ratification. We'll get him off and running. Mike Weaver is super excited to be part of our team, and we're excited to have him. Also tonight, you approved our annual report from our library. Super proud of our staff. World-class service there that is provided to our residents each and every day. I want to read one little area from the report from our director, Spencer Payton's here, and we appreciate all that he does to help our system. Our adult services and our youth services and all the programs are wonderful. I just wanted to highlight one innovation area. We have many wonderful youth programs that inspire and encourage discovery while sparking the imagination. Family STEM Day, Dramatic Play Day, STEM Ducky Day, Cardboard Architecture, Mindstorm activities for children and teens, craft widgets, I can go on and on. Furthermore, we have a business startup school, entrepreneur classes geared for adults, which is grant funded and partnered with our library, ASU, and the Small Business Development Center, and the library cities and our city economic development department. This is not your yesteryear library. This is the innovation to help build capacity for those who want to grow, those who want to learn. And for that, Spencer, thank you for all that you do to help make that happen. Wanted to also share a little bit about our chief. Chief Kelly was recently named to the National Advisory Board Chair of the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, BICAP. Super proud of him and super proud of the way he represents our community. Congratulations, Chief Kelly, on that. And then we received this week a letter from one of our residents that just wanted to thank Officer Ruan and the whole department for your help checking on the welfare of our friend this past Sunday for quick response time. Officer Ruan actually called me and displayed excellent interview skills, and then called reassuring me that our friend was okay. Thanks again. Each and every day I want us to always be reminded of the work that's done. Our officers have a tough job. They are expected to be peace officers, sometimes counselors, like I say, social workers, and encourage the safety of our community. So for that, I'm very grateful. Tonight we have with us two visitors, and we are having them as part of our city manager report. We'll first invite Chris Coyle of Republic to come on up and share with us his thoughts on a few things that we've asked him to do. And Chris, we'll turn the time over to you. After that, Larry Johnson from the chamber and will come up.
Thanks, Bryant. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Coyle, General Manager for Republic Services with the Apache Junction Landfill. Before we get into the presentation, and I think, Matt, you'll be pulling it up? Oh, yes.
Yeah, so it's
I'll give you a couple updates on things. So I haven't been here in a little bit. The last free dump week we had was May 8th through 13th. The residents, we had 748 visitors that brought in 376.76 tons for a total free value to the community of $7,139.92. So a little slower than the prior quarter. I think the prior quarter we were in the 1,200 customer ticket range. So, it's starting to get a little hot in May, so maybe that's what brought them down. And to provide you on the city free tons that Public Works is allowed to bring, We're halfway through the year here, and the city's right on pace, right at about 2,500 tons year to date, which provides a total free value so far of $47,500 of disposal for the Department of Public Works. So, so you guys are taking great advantage of that. The next free dump week is August 7th through 12th. Just a general reminder, it's the second week of the second month each quarter, for future reference. And a quick update on some things going on at the landfill. To comply with new federal EPA regulations, NSPS, maybe you've seen some of that flow through your email. It's a real boring read. Anyway, we've installed a new flare out there for compliance with that. It should be operational at the end of this week, early next week. So once it cools down, we'll set up invites and get you a tour out there so you can see what that's all about. And then last but not least, groundwater monitoring. We're going to start drilling here in the next 6 to 8 weeks to get that going as part of the expansion compliance process. And once we start drilling, it should take about 28 to 30 days to have the groundwater monitoring in and operational. So questions allowed at this time? No? Yeah? Any questions on any of that stuff? Okay. Then we'll get into the wonderful world of composting. So I'm here tonight just to give you a quick high overview of what composting is and what it means to the community and some of the benefits of it, and there's some challenges there. So I kind of have a frank discussion here. Do I move this along, or?
I can if you need me to, or just use the arrows on the keyboard.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so compost. Compost is a big chemistry experiment, and so there's a lot of science that goes behind it, and it's a biological process. And what it's meant to do is break down certain organic materials, and in a second we'll talk about those types of organic materials. But your basic ones are fruits and vegetables, meats and cheeses, but again, it's how you mix them is how the compost works. But it needs to be done in a manufacturing facility, an approved industrial type environment. And that equipment will vary depending on what types of inputs you have, what type of outputs you have, and how you want to do your composting, because there's different ways to do your composting. So how does it work? This infographic, it may be a little hard to read, I hope you can see it, but this infographic walks you through it. You know, first you got to find the right feedstock, you got to get it to the right location, there's tip fees for dumping it, then it needs to be processed, and how do you process it, again, as part of the solution. During that processing, you have challenges as far as heavy equipment, footprint of the facility, odors, and we'll talk more about that later. And then what do you do with it when you're all done with it? Because right now, if you need a bag of dirt, you know, the local Home Depot or True Value or Fry's will have your bag of dirt that you need. Now we're taking more dirt and throwing it into a supply stream, okay, as far as what your compost goes. So next, here's all the kind of feedstock considerations. So again, there's a lot of different feedstocks that can go into it. You can get it from anywhere from your regular household waste, from certain businesses, you know, a butcher, or even separating it at a large place like a Fry's, or it can come industrial too. Also, source separated is usually the best way to do it. But you look at all of that organic material, you can't just throw it into a pile and it's just automatically going to work, and then you're just going to have good material. Again, going back to the chemistry kind of analogy to it, you need to have the right mixes, the right amounts, the right inputs to get the desired input and to get the desired output, so that output is then commercially viable or even safe to use in the community. For example, if your material is contaminated coming in with glass, for example, you can't use that at the local park when it's all done, because you're going to have kids playing around. You don't want that glass out there. So depending on the facility you build, you know, here's some sticker shock for you. It can be anywhere from $500,000 to $20 million of your initial investment, and that's before you even open the gates. You got to buy property, you got to buy equipment to turn it, you got to buy loaders to push it. You need to be able to put air into it. You need the right people on board, and then you see a tip fee of $60 a ton. If you look at the gate rate of the Apache Junction landfill, it's currently at $40 a ton, okay? And that's to dump it and put it in a landfill. So there's one of your first hurdles that you got going on there is the tip fee for that. So typically, you're going to get 90% green waste and 10% food. And trying to find that right mix, again, is very hard. It's time consuming to go pick up 1 or 2 pounds of food from a house and then to make that, again, commercially and economically viable. It's really emerging in areas where they are mandating organic separation. You can look at our neighbor to the west, California, who's mandated the removal of organics from the landfill. So what do you do with it? Yet composting is one of those solutions and one of the more common solutions. But then here comes the challenges. And so with a composting facility, it is permitted at a very similar level to a landfill. ADEQ needs to be involved. You need to have an air quality permit. Odors tend to be the biggest issues with composting facilities. At a landfill, we cover the trash every day, so that kind of takes care of the odors and it keeps them confined right to the working phase. Compost most commonly is open air. So as that material degrades and composts and heats up, it puts off a heck of an odor. And so that's citing these things tends to be the biggest problem with composting facilities, but then you also need your air permit to comply with that. Again, with open pits or with open windrows, it allows more access for vectors to get into the composting, you know, to pull out food, drag it away, and then you're creating kind of a litter issue around the facility. And again, it's what goes into that. You never know, you don't always know exactly what's coming into the facility, whereas at a landfill, we go through a special waste process to identify the material, get analytics on that material to make sure it's safe to go into the landfill. You don't always get that with a composting facility. And then really at the end, it's the compost quality at the end of it. Does it meet, did the science and chemistry experiment work and produce a material that is commercially viable? And where does it go? Tempe has a program right now that they're doing some compost, small volumes, you know, maybe 10 tons a day, if that. They can't get rid of it. They have it for free. Anybody can come pick up a pickup truck bed size of it, and they just can't get rid of it. So maybe there's somebody to get some actual data from to see what they're doing with it and how it's going. But that's one of the real challenges. So to put in this investment, try to do this, it keeps the material out of the landfill, but then what do you do with it? And again, how do you make it economically viable? So with that, I'll try my best to answer any questions on this.
Anyone?
So in California, are they placing them near sewer treatment plants or anything like that, where there's already the air quality issues that they have to maintain, or how are they handling it?
I guess anecdotally, I can say yes and no. In Imperial, I know there's one off Interstate 8 right before you turn north, heading up into Brawley. There's one there, and that's in the middle of nowhere. I do know of a composting facility up in the Bay Area that, yeah, is literally across the street from the wastewater treatment facility. Yeah. But that whole area is having odor issues in general with the wastewater treatment plant, with the compost. They're pointing fingers. So, but that ideally might be the best location, but it's a little bit easier to control the odor on wastewater treatment than compost.
Right. Then I just have one of the items was diapers.
Mm-hmm. They remove the plastic from the inner lining, and the inner lining is cotton fiber and human waste, so that's organic.
So who's they? Who removes it?
Yeah, that's what, that was
What you doing Saturday, Bryant?
was my question, yeah. Is that a minimum wage job?
Not me, I can tell you that.
That's one of those jobs when they ask, what is your worst job in the world?
That'd be close to the top of the list. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that you didn't mention, but also I do know in the aspect that the part of the problems is of course the fire danger.
Correct.
And everything. It does heat up.
Yep.
It gets very warm, and there is a possibility of well, I'll say fire, and so in California, have they been experiencing a lot of fires? How are they working on that?
To be honest, I don't have an answer to that. We have our annual fire in downtown Phoenix and West Phoenix here with a compost facility or attempted compost facility. That's actually more of a green waste grinding facility, not a true compost facility. But so they're not even trying to cook the material, and the material gets that hot to where it'll spontaneously combust. So here you're trying to heat up the material. You want those microbes to get to work. You want them to have a nice warm environment, and you're doing that intentionally. So again, with the right management, the right people, they're going to mitigate those risks as much as possible, but there's always that risk.
Yeah, when we were growing up, we had a little 4x4, 5x5 foot section that we did compost for just our house, and you didn't want to be downwind from it.
Exactly.
So I can't imagine. Yeah.
Let's go this way. Krista?
You mentioned something called an air permit. What is that?
So we go through Pinal County or Maricopa County, here it'd be Pinal, and we need an air quality permit for the activities that we do on site. We have to quantify them. So how many engines do we have that are portable, that are stationary? We have to have certain dust control measures. How much water how many tons we take in each day at the facility. We have to put down X number of gallons of water to ensure we have significant, adequate dust control. So it's those types of things.
Okay, that makes sense. And just one more question. You mentioned that Tempe has a site where they're giving it away for free. Do you have to be a resident?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay, thank
But
you.
yeah, good
We
question.
could find out about that. Let's find out.
Yeah, okay.
Robin?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Chris, for bringing this to us. I've had a lot of citizens ask me why we don't have compost facilities here, and I wanted people to be able to hear why we don't have compost facilities, so I thank you very much.
You're welcome, and if you get any further inquiries, feel free to just throw them my way. I'll be glad to take care of them.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Yep. Thank you, and thank you, Chris. We'll now call Larry Johnson of the Chamber of Commerce for his annual report. I see a couple chamber board members too. It's great to have him here.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council and staff. Larry Johnson with the Apache Junction Chamber of Commerce, 567 West Apache Trail. 'Tis the season for our annual update. I'm going to go ahead and scroll through our presentation. We're proudly serving the community of Apache Junction for 57 years now, so actually longer than the city's even been incorporated or in existence. So, first slide, we actually reflect a part of our display area. We added extra corkboards this year because we have so many community activities and events that we simply had to expand. So now we have 3 large areas to display not only information about community events, but also local music venues and even regional and area events as well. Beyond that, of course, we circulate information on local businesses and maps and all the things that a typical visitor center would have. Our annual door swings, this is actually a fiscal calendar, if you will, of our annual door swings for the last year. Being that this is a yearly report, I thought I'd revise it slightly. So from July 1 of 2016 to June of 2017, we actually had 35,401 door swings through our facility. Our next comparison is that within the last 3 years. As you can see, each and every year, as is historically, we've actually increased. 2017, the calendar year has not completed, and that's why that number is only through the 6-month portion. So, but we're well on our way to exceeding that 35,000 door swing mark again this year. Local artists. We reached out to SACA, the Superstition Area Cultural Alliance, or Arts and Culture Alliance. We're inviting the local artists to come in and display their art at our facilities. So we're really looking forward to not only creating more appeal to our visitor center, but also reflecting, of course, our local artists and frankly, boasting on their wonderful talent. So I'm really optimistic that will be a great partnership and an ongoing partnership with that. It'll also give us, again, a chance to update our facility frequently as the paintings come and go and they change them out. ADA compliance. This has been kind of a hot button item. ADA compliance issues are not typically affordable. So last year we focused on parking lot, updating of our parking lots, proper signage heights, and of course widths for parking spaces, van accessibility, and so forth. But we carried that into the facility, and actually our restroom, you can see the display of our restroom facility, which is, we've completely automated our restrooms. So not only is it easier for the consumer to use, but also more sanitary for our visitors. Our windows, we talked about this last year, but our windows have been covered by one of our local businesses. They reflect our local area attractions and points of interest and have been received tremendously well by our visitors. We get compliments on them weekly and sometimes even daily, depending on the time of the year. We actually even added illumination and lighting underneath our patio and porch area to kind of show off that imagery as well.
Where are those done, Larry?
What's that?
Where are those made?
Raised Printing actually created those for us. We just wanted to create a warmer environment, and that's what we've done there. Some of our new additions include a bike rack. We realize that we do have cyclists, especially in the winter months. We have cyclists that come through. They've leaned their bikes up against our poles several times, and I thought, why not designate an actual area for them? So we've created that option. We added a hitching post that was last fall, and now we've actually added you'll see next to that, you'll see the water trough. Again, it's a bit of a reflection on our local culture, as well as, of course, when Chip wants to ride on down, has a place to hitch up his horse, and also a water trough now for that horse to drink from, and hopefully that mosquito will continue to grow, so it'll even be shaded before too long.
We'll wait until it cools off a little bit.
A little cooler. Huh? I heard the same thing from our cyclists I invited to come down and use our bike rack. So, and then finally we have our. This is in production. I understand as of today that we should have this by August, but this is the backrest portion of our Welcome to Apache Junction. It's made by Old West Iron Art. Brad at Old West Iron Art is creating this, and it's a wagon wheel frame, and this is the actual backrest portion. So you'll see the AJ surrounded by Legends logo, the Chamber logo, and of course everyone recognizes the Burro and Dutchman. So I think it's a really great way to kind of welcome people to our community. It will literally be positioned immediately to the left of the front doors. So as you walk up, that's what you will see. So, and that wood is not painted, it's actually embossed and then painted, it's filled in after it's embossed. So it's engraved into the wood, so it's not something that's just going to scratch off. They're really beautiful, and I'm excited to show those to you when we're complete. And last year I assured the council we would collect extra data. We've actually been actively pursuing that. We've been inquiring with a lot of our visitors that are coming through the facility as to where you came from. Please sign our registration book. And I hope to, within the next 6 months, to be able to provide you a year's worth of data from that effort. We also, of course, assured you that we'd reinvest in our facility. And I'm confident that we've shown that we have done and are continuing to do just that. So I just want to make sure we're preserving our history, reflecting our where we have been, but also focusing on our future, and that's the ultimate objective of our visitor center. We're still retaining, of course, approximately 20 volunteers to accommodate our very intimate, if you will, experience for the visitor center. It's not a kiosk, it's not all automated. We're going to be adding a few more features to the interior of the building to try to, to really just to reflect some of the digital potential, if you will. I want to have videos of our local businesses. We'll see how that comes along. I just don't want to make a promise to you that I can't keep. So in the next year or so, we'll be working on video production. So rather than just having an image, still images, we'll actually be able to create videos and do narrated tours of these different attractions. So again, something I kind of wanted to keep under my hat, but stay tuned. We've got a lot of neat things that we're working on. So that's a brief summary. I don't want to be too redundant because I report to you probably more frequently than you like to see me. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
No, you know, those windows look good. They really do.
Ray's did a wonderful job,
Yeah.
not only designing them, we actually had local photographer take a lot of those images as well. So it's all an organic process for getting wrapped back into the baby diaper conversation. We don't want to go with organic.
And what a difference it made to the building.
Yeah, it really did. It really has brightened it up a lot, so.
Jeff, I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for an innovative ways? You're talking about, right here, you were talking about visitors to the visitor center. Do you have any plans for innovative ways to reach out to people outside of the community to get to the community?
I do, and I don't like to put things out there before I kind of have confirmation. One example is the Renaissance Festival. We're working very closely with them. We realize there's a tremendous group, a tremendous volume of consumers that are driving right by our community, often congesting our roadways and discouraging commerce from occurring here. So we want to maximize and capitalize on that opportunity. They're at our front door. They're all but knocking. We need to show them what we have. So I've reached out to the Renaissance Festival. As a matter of fact, I'll be following up later this week on that communication. I'd really like to, most of the people that attend the Renaissance Festival would certainly appreciate a lot of the attractions we have in and around our area, but they're just not made aware of it. So I want to really reach out to that group and see if there's any way in which we can partner, a little more collaboration, just like we've done with the Apache Trail Attractions group, for instance, where they kind of scratch each other's backs, support each other in advertising and so forth. I'd like to get the Renaissance Festival in on that effort so we can kind of support them and in turn they support us. But again, these are just new concepts we're working on. I like to have things hammered out so I can give you the end result before I just talk about some of the things that are on my mind. So,
Do you have any plans, or is there anything in the works to help the community get educated about how our what benefits our winter visitors have for the community, and to educate the rest of the community?
To educate our year-round residents about the benefits, that's an ongoing and continuous, usually a one-on-one discussion that I like to have. If you get into public conversations, you end up with a lot of people who are just a little bit misinformed. Candidly, they don't realize the impact. Without the winter visitors, our businesses wouldn't exist. This chamber would not exist, and unfortunately, our consumers or our average member of our community doesn't understand that. The ultimate impact of the business, everything is reliant upon business, everything, and that's something that again I just can't get out in a public forum and say it. Has to be a one-on-one conversation. It's funny because I actually had my haircut recently and had this very conversation, so it's ironic that you brought it up. But some of those things, as you know, you get questions endlessly, and more often it's just about a lack of information or incorrect and inaccurate information that's out there. So, but as far as a holistic plan, we just kind of say, I want to state more of the impact of the winter visitors, but we need a little bit more data to actually be able to put it out there. We just keep tooting our own horn and boasting about the impact of the visitors. That's what we do. And that's about the only way we could do it without turning anyone on defense, if you will.
The aisles are going to be wider at the new fries, so that'll help.
Your Honor?
Yes.
And you're working to get a little more sign exposure out on the trail as well with Discount Tire, right?
Absolutely. We're reaching out to them. Again, these are things that are in the works, so I don't like to get too far ahead of myself. But the objective, of course, if indeed that project moves forward, I'm trying to get in. Actually, I've already reached out to the realtor, and I'm trying to get into the corporate, in the corporate offices to assure that we'll have a great neighborly relationship, preferably with signage, roadside signage and access. I'd love to have an electronic sign on their property
The exposure from the trail.
or in proximity. And I'm hoping that they'll be willing and embracing of that kind of extension of neighborhood, involvement and so forth. Because of course if we could get an electronic sign, we would just kind of not necessarily repeat exactly what the city is doing, but of course promote local events and attractions and so forth. So lots of things that we're working on, but again, I like to come in with a finished result or what we'll actually be doing rather than just hopes. We're always working, always out there trying to look for the next best thing and look for opportunities to expose our community in that positive light.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. That concludes our report.
Okay.
Good report, Brian.
Yeah.
Public hearing for application for an interim permit, LLC Series 10 liquor license for Shell 1621. Kathy Conley?
Yes, Your Honor. This is a application for the Shell station that's on Ironwood and Apache Trail. It's for an interim permit for a new license. In your packet, you have comments from city staff, none of whom have an objection to this license. The applicant is here this evening in the event you have any questions.
Would the applicant like to speak to the council? You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you can. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion?
I believe this is just going back to the original.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So, yeah.
And so then I'll call for a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that the application for an interim permit new license limited liability company, Series 10 liquor license submitted by Dev Baznet be recommended for approval to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control.
Second.
A motion and second. Roll call?
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee.
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
Public hearing for proposed Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1, Chapter 9, Health and Sanitation, Property Maintenance Standards, Oleander Prohibition Amendments. Joel Stern.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation of a meeting we had about a month ago. There's been some changes to the actual proposal. There are some attachments, and the Oleander Working Group proposes two major changes. And if you take a look at the memo dated July 18th, authored by the members of the group, who I will announce, Darrell Cross, Catherine Boren, Steve McClintock, and Jeff Watson. The major change in the proposal is that this will apply where horses are concerned and not other animals, because that was a concern from last time regarding chickens and a few other animals. So now it's just horses. And in addition to that, the other major thing they wanted to include in this draft was that enforcement of this subsection shall be complaint-based. So it's not going to be a situation where city staff is going to go around looking for the oleanders. Another issue came up, which I did research it more thoroughly, and we talked about Proposition 207, which was passed by the voters in 2006, which basically says if the council passes any land use law that diminishes the value of their property, there could be a cause of action. Now, there are some exceptions to that. And the way to avoid that statute, which is what I tried to do with Chapter 9, Health and Sanitation, you put it in that section, and you essentially state that oleanders would be a hazard, a health hazard. So under ARS 12-1134, and that's essentially what Proposition 207 did, it created a modified section of this statute. It's called diminution in value, just compensation. This will not apply if it is declared for the protection of the public's health and safety, including rules and regulations relating to fire and building codes, health and sanitation, that's the one, and also, under subsection B2, limit or prohibit the use or division of real property commonly and historically recognized as a public nuisance under common law. So bottom line is, this section can be done so that this avoids Proposition 207, because it'd be declared basically a health hazard. Another issue that came up was, how would the public be educated on the dangers of oleanders? The Superstition Horsemen's Association has committed that they would put all that kind of information on their website. So anybody who wanted to know the dangers of oleanders to animals and also to humans, they would have it on their website. So tonight is the public hearing, and I think you wanted to hear more from the public. And I have nothing further on this, unless you have questions.
Your Honor?
Yes.
That's
Two,
okay,
both
you were
of you go.
recognized, go ahead.
As far as the being declared a health hazard, would that not include the whole city?
It would be declared a public nuisance, and therefore also a health hazard. So any oleanders would be considered a public nuisance. So that would then, I won't say 100% immunize the city, but I think if it's in your code, and there'd be some, probably some whereas clauses in the ordinance and probably in the actual ordinance that declares it a public nuisance. So then someone can't say, well, you have diminished my value because you made me take down this row of oleanders.
Thank you.
Krista?
So Joel, the way that I'm reading this, it doesn't say that it's a complete ban. It's not saying that nobody can plant them, nobody can have them. It's saying that they have to be maintained, and if there's an issue, a neighbor can file a complaint and it'll go from there. It's not saying that, it's not a straight off ban. We're just, is that correct? We're just saying that you have to maintain them so that they're not growing over onto the neighbor's property.
That is correct. This is a compromise to a total ban. I'll read it really quickly for the audience. No person shall maintain, grow, keep, or plant any oleander tree or shrub, Nerium oleander, in the city unless it is maintained, grown, kept, or planted in a location or size in which it is not accessible to horses, Equus spp, that's the species of a horse, I suppose, on adjoining properties, or in such a manner in which the leaves are contained on the property from which the plant is maintained, grown, kept, or planted. Enforcement of the subsection shall be complaint-driven. So, what that means is you can have oleanders, but if they're in such a location that they are a danger to horses, then there would be a violation. So there'd be some discretion for the code officer to work with the apparent violator. Say, hey, can you cut those? Can you put up a barrier of some kind? So there would be some discretion for a code compliance officer.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Leads to another question. So if somebody has property that is not adjacent to horse property, but has oleanders, and because of a monsoon storm, their leaves end up on horse property, then they could be liable, correct?
If there's a complaint that's made to code
Exactly.
enforcement, they would check into that and they would determine whether that was a possibility.
Thank you.
Chip?
I'd like to respond to that a little bit in the aspect on it. I've made I'm going to say, first off, for those that don't know, I live in the large lot area and I do have horses. And I've gone around in my neighborhood, and I have people that have oleander on their property. I would say within, the closest is within two lots. Of course, each one's about 1.25 acres away from me. Furthest ones away, I've got them on the east side, west side, south, and north. So I am basically, in a sense, totally surrounded by adjacent properties that have it, but not right next to me. I have yet to see a oleander leaf on my property since we've moved here in 1990. So that particular problem, if you have oleander that's already currently growing, is really not an issue because it's just not very prevalent. I have one person that has a huge row of oleander, and but I can understand that if the neighbor had animals, there would be a problem because those leaves are staying fairly close to where the plant is. Other than that, they disperse very well.
So if there's a complaint by a neighbor and city staff goes there and determines that maybe it should be trimmed down or something, and what happens if the city staff tells that landowner to trim it down and they don't? What happens then?
Well, there's, for enforcement, there is a civil process, and they'd probably get an official letter of violation. And at one point, if they did not abide by that, they would then get a civil citation. And the first one would be $250. The second one, within 24 months, would be $500. And then the third one would be $750 within 24 months. After that, the enforcement, and this would be for any Chapter 9 violation, Chapter 9 of the Health and Sanitation Code of our, of the City Code, Volume 1. Then the criminal process would take over. And you know what? Since Eric's here, he can explain how the criminal process would work.
Be very similar to the civil process. So the people are basically the same, the code compliance officer, and the process is very much the same. Again, they send letters to warn them, they give them a deadline to repair it. If they don't, then they would see me, and because it's the fourth violation, I would probably offer a $1,000 fine if they'd had the 3 previous ones. So in the 4 years that I've been here, for any of these Chapter 9 violations, I think we've had one defendant that has actually gotten 3 civil violations within 24 months, and then the 4th one came to me. So it's very rare that that would happen, but it could.
I have another question. So, Joel, do we have anything in place, and this might be a question for Larry, do we have anything in place currently that, let's say, that would force a person to maintain, maybe it's not an oleander, it's a different tree. Do we have anything in place right now that causes a person to have to maintain a growth or tree, bush, shrub, whatever, on their property, or they would be in violation?
There's a limited enforcement section that if something's dead, or it's decaying, or it's in such a state that it's not presentable, I forget the exact language, but basically if it's decaying or dying, then yes, there is. But in case of something that's living and it's thriving and it's going over someone's wall, no, that's more of a civil dispute between the 2 neighbors. Now, if it's going over someone's wall and it's now in the airspace of the adjoining property owner, they can actually cut it. Mm-hmm. And they could, get into a lawsuit over that, but if it's going into someone's property, it's called a civil trespass. That's what that is. So, and that's the civil violation.
But code compliance wouldn't come out, say I'm just a stubborn neighbor and I refuse to trim my tree and it's wrecking Dave's roof or whatever, and and I just refuse to do anything about it. There's nothing, no mechanism in place for code compliance to come out and say, you're gonna take care of it, or we're gonna give you a ticket. We don't have any of that.
If it's a tree that's on one person's property and it's now intruding on the other person's over a wall, or it's hitting their roof because their houses are close together, no, that's a civil dispute. If it's in the airspace, though, of the adjoining property owner, that property owner can do self-help, and they can actually cut the tree limb, or whatever it is. And then they could try to charge the other neighbor, if they want, for the cost of doing it, if it's a large tree. That's happened before.
So there really isn't any protection for the neighbor that doesn't want the tree overgrowing onto their property. There's not really any protection then.
No, most cities don't regulate that. They stay out of that. That's really that's government going overboard somehow. That's how some people see it. But some other communities, maybe not. Some other high-end communities where, that's a real issue, there could be such a code section.
But in this case, because it's been determined that oleanders are a hazard, there's a possible need to have a little bit more regulation and enforcement in place.
Well, if you pass it as written, or as they propose in the new recommendation dated July 18th, then yes, then there is something that could be done. This would allow that. Now, just getting a ticket for $250 doesn't do that. That's just a ticket. So the person still is in violation. So they get another ticket. Now it's $500. So even at $750, they say, I'm not touching it. I'll pay this money. I don't care. At one point, the criminal case comes in, and actually, criminal law, you could put someone on probation, and a term of probation could be to basically get in compliance with this code section, and then there could actually be jail at the time. But that is very rare on one of these types of cases. Even before the council, back in, I don't remember the year, it may have been 2005 or 6, you decriminalized a lot of these items, and they became civil. Even when they were criminalized, I don't recall any kind of jail time for this kind of thing. Not for this kind of overgrowth on someone's property.
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a complaint made, and code compliant goes out there, and it's overgrown. The ordinance that's in here says that we will, get this right, that the oleander will be contained in the property, the oleander. But to come back to the point about wind, and we've received a number of letters, in support of this, and some of them actually state that it's not common for horses to eat from live bushes, but yet they would get it from leaves that are mixed within other leaves, other foliage, which is already on the ground or mixed in with the hay. And so so that comes back down to the question of wind. How does the staff force the landowner where the oleanders are on to contain it from wind blowing it to another property?
I think it'd be an observation by the code officer whether they believe, depending on the size of the oleander, where it's located, if there's a wall in front of it, whether leaves can get over the wall. It'd be a discretionary opinion of the code compliance officer. And perhaps they would come up with some kind of standards for these kind of violations so that the discretion doesn't vary from one code officer to another. I don't know. That's something I have not talked to the director about.
And so that would lead to the staff having to develop some further code compliance in which they would be able to judge the issue on.
Further criteria on what would a violation be based on, yes.
And there's probably property out there, I mean, I haven't surveyed it all and inspected it all, but there's probably property out there that don't have, walls, 6-foot walls, 5-foot walls out there. There's just maybe even a post fence separating the property with oleanders growing on one side and not the other. Is there any is there anywhere in this that the property owner is going to be forced to build a brick wall of any certain size to contain the oleanders?
If they want to keep it, I mean, they could do that on their own, but the city would, and Eric can opine on this, but I can't imagine a prosecutor saying, you have to build a 6-foot wall. You have a different opinion on that?
No.
Now, there was a case involving one of the group participants where there was already a wall, and the offending oleanders, they were cut down to a certain level after there was a request to do that from me. So there's no code that made that person do that. It was on their own to do it, so.
And I know this is, there's always, anytime there are ordinances or laws or whatever, there's always unintended consequences that go along with them, and who knows what that might be with this one. But, we asked, the council asked, or was talked about just limiting this to horses, and so that's what this did. But what is stopping later on from another group of citizens coming before the council and saying that we want to insert llamas, we want to insert dogs, we want to insert chickens? So, how there's obviously nothing stopping from anybody to doing that, but those are unintended consequences to just limit it to horses in this way, right?
That would be a policy decision on the council, depending on who comes up. If you are convinced that a veterinarian is saying, or another expert is saying, well, it's not just horses, it's other animals in the future, or even in this case, because you still have both, versions, so you can do what you want with this language. And there are motions in the back on the blue page. You can agree on the first version, you can agree on this version or with changes, or you can basically take no action on this and table it.
I think some of those scenarios might be pretty far-fetched, other than llamas, which are like horses. Yes.
On the subject of wind, we had an interesting windstorm last night. Blew pretty hard. I live across the street and from a neighbor who has a pine tree, which is in their backyard, so it's way back there. I spent part of the afternoon raking pine needles out of my pool. So we can't control the wind. I mean, those little petals from oleanders are so lightweight, they can go for blocks. It's ludicrous. And also, since this is states only horses, I feel very strongly this is a backdoor method to avoid Proposition 207, because horses are only in a specifically zoned area. And this particular thing is talking about horses, which means it's only talking about that particular zoned area. To me, it's just a way to try to get away from 207.
Any more discussion before we go to the public hearing?
No, I want to
Let's. Okay. This is a public hearing, and we have some requests to speak, and then after that, if anyone else wants to speak. First would be Kathy Diroff.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council and staff. And I'd like to thank Joel Stern for all the work he has put into this and consideration. We do appreciate that as horse owners.
We need your address for the record.
Kathy Diroff, 860 North Wickiup Road, Apache Junction. My husband and I came out here about 18 years ago to visit and ride horses with friends. And my husband, the first night, took one look at that mountain and said, "This is where we're coming when we retire." He absolutely fell in love with Apache Junction. We still love it. We brought horses out for 11 years as winter visitors, and for the past 6 years, we have a house on Wickiup. We're here full-time, sweating it out with everyone else through the summer. I would just like to ask for some consideration on protecting the horses. And I've been told, too, by the veterinarians, this can be a danger to dogs and children also. You know, when we first moved to northern Michigan, I took my horses up to the local veterinary clinic, and the vet come out and said, "Are you familiar with this area?" And I said, "No." She said, "Well, the first thing you need to know is that there's a particular maple tree that is highly poisonous to horses. 5 leaves will kill your horse." So I said, okay. Went home, and of course, the biggest, most beautiful tree on our property that we had just purchased was a red oak, and we tore it out, you know, just for our own peace of mind, and we didn't need to go there with our horses. Then I find out that oleander is poisonous, along with some other things here. So I would just ask for your consideration. Since this is a horse community, and I was tickled to learn from Mr. Johnson from the Chamber of Commerce about the new hitching rail and the water trough, and I like the bars and restaurants that have hitching posts, and we ride over to the library all the time and tie up there. I mean, it's just a nice thing. So anyway, I would just like your consideration on this amendment. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Jackie Cross.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I'm reading this letter on behalf of Tom and Doreen Colbert. They're winter visitors from Canada.
What's your address?
Jackie Cross, 1018 North Acacia, Apache Junction. In 2008, we brought 2 of our horses to Apache Junction because our Canadian equestrian friends told us they had been coming to Apache Junction because of the beautiful trails and equine-friendly atmosphere of the city. They were definitely correct. I make my fellow Canadian equestrians jealous when I tell them I can tie my horse to a hitching rail at a church, saloon, or library in Apache Junction. We love the city so much that we purchased a horse property on 676 North Solana Road 4 years ago. We have been involved in various volunteer groups to help those in need, and through being members of East Valley Backcountry Horsemen, we have not only been involved in trail maintenance, but have worked with your employees to upgrade the equestrian step-over gates in Apache Junction. We have also repaired a lot of fences and picked up barbed wire and a lot of other trash in the outlying areas of the city. I am a retired veterinarian, and so when the Oleander issue first arose, I was skeptical, so I did my research, and it scares me how few leaves could make a horse sick or kill it. What really worries me is the difficulty of making a quick diagnosis of oleander poisoning on a live horse and the lack of good therapy methods to treat it, even if it were still alive. So I absolutely believe the prevention of exposure to the oleander is the only answer. Some skeptics say that the horse is unlikely to chew the leaves off the tree, but my research tells me more often the problem arises when the leaves blow off the shrub and mix with leaves of other plants or hay on the ground, and the horse inadvertently eats the oleander. I have 2 neighbors that have oleander growing along a partition fence between our property and their property. Joe keeps his cut down below the top of the 5-foot fence, and Leslie allows me to trim her oleander below the top of the fence also. Since Leslie is considering selling her property, I am very concerned that the new owner might not choose to be cooperative and my horses would be at risk with nothing I could do to protect them. I think the amendment is an excellent compromise which demonstrates that we do not wish to infringe on our neighbors' rights, but if they are inconsiderate enough to risk the health of our horses, there is an easy corrective solution. I also love this solution because it provides minimal city staff involvement so we can keep our taxes down. I believe that in many cases, education will stop problems, but I do realize there is a minority of citizens that dislike horses enough who would need a legal nudge in order for them to do the right thing. And again, this is from Tom and Doreen Colbert of Manitoba, Canada. Thank you.
Darrell Cross.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and Joel. My name is Darrell Cross, address 1018 North Acacia Road, Apache Junction. Real quick regarding the oleander and that block wall where Joel had the person cut it down or cut it back. I was over at the property today and looking at it on behalf of the property owner, and with all the wind that we've had the last few days, I could find absolutely no oleander leaves on Mrs. Boren's side of the fence where the horses would normally be kept. So a barrier does work. I'd like everybody to stand up that's in support of this ordinance, if you would, please. That's just a small sampling of, if we were doing this in the winter, it'd probably be packed in here because there's a lot of people that are passionate about this. And we fully support the change to the city's nuisance code and all the restrictions. Can we get this turned on?
Sometimes this.
Yeah, that's good. One of the concerns I've heard through social media is that this ordinance would be, needs to have some kind of a grandfather clause. And there's a lot of issues with trying to do a grandfather clause. And so one of the things we thought about is the investigating code compliance officer could be required to reasonably investigate and determine who was there first, the horses or the oleander. And before any action is taken regarding an oleander complaint, if it is determined that the oleander was there first, no action should be taken. So that would be a way of overcoming a grandfather type issue. There's been a lot of talk as to all the different scenarios that could go on here, and this mainly was generated because somebody had ill intent and wanted their the neighbor's horses moved. And so they chose to plant oleander and told the person specifically that they were planting the oleander, that if you're not going to move your horses, I'll force you to move your horses. So that person would have two choices: try and fight it like they're doing, but think about this: if they chose to leave their horses there and tried to maintain and keep the leaves away, what if one of their horses ate an oleander leaf, got sick, or died? Could they now be charged with animal abuse because they didn't move their horses to a safe area within their yard? It's a question that really needs to be thought about. So Apache Junction is known throughout the country as being a horse-friendly community. And winter visitors come from all over the United States and obviously Canada. And with that, they bring tremendous amount of tax revenue. A lot of them own property and purchase all kinds of horse-related products, from food, tack, trailers, and supplies, and fuel. That's just to name a few. On top of that, They love to eat at our restaurants and spend their money here in Apache Junction. Now, if we contrast that with Oleander, what economic benefits does it afford the city? Very little benefit apart from the taxes collected when the plant was first bought. Sure, there's a little bit of a sales tax along as it is purchased, when it's purchased, unless it was purchased at Home Depot or Lowe's. After it's in the ground, though, there's nothing that's going to benefit our tax revenue or our tax base here. It's planted, it's not generating any more money. Where the horse people, we're constantly generating revenue for the city, a tremendous amount of revenue. And we see we have a problem, we're asking for help. We need the help. We don't want our horses to die from this plant. So please give it some really good consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Joel, before we go any further, do we know where that text is from? Is that in any ordinance somewhere?
You mean the quote that's on the screen?
Yes.
No, it is
Mr.
not.
Cross made it. He's the one who created this.
So if there's any motion made, this is not going to be in it. This is,
Unless you want to put it in the motion. But once again, the direction to staff would be for me to bring back an ordinance. Because right now, you just have a draft. There is no direction
All right,
for the
thank
actual
you.
ordinance.
thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the subject?
Hello, Jeff Watson, 2140 North Warner Drive. I keep hearing the wind issue. The wind issue is something, but we have a dust issue. The state come to us and said, if we cannot control the dust on our property, we're liable for the dust going everywhere. Well, how can I see when this dust storm rolls in that from my neighbor, can I go over to him and say, hey, your dust came on property, you need to, stop it and hold it there. That's, where do we go to that? The neighbor here plants oleanders. It's this monsoon season come out there. I go out there and I spray my Roundup. Am I legally responsible for the wind, the wind carrying my Roundup to my neighbor's plants and killing his plants on his property? The wind did it, not my fault. All we're asking is some way for us to allow us to control and help the neighbors talk with each other and work with it. We have ordinances against light going. I can't shine my light in my neighbor's bedroom window all night long. Light pollution. I can't have radio playing all night long. Noise ordinances. Why can't we have something to control the plants? Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the hearing. Any discussion?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
Where I'm really torn on this is I'm like Chip. I have live on an acre and a quarter, and my husband and I own a couple of burros, and they roam the property. And my neighbor is a horse owner, and she has horses. And there's a part of our fence that actually is oleanders. And in all honesty, before we were aware that oleanders could make them sick, we really didn't know, but it's never been an issue. And so I think the council wants to be supportive for, a neighbor that's got an issue, and you have a vindictive neighbor that intentionally tries to bring harm to an animal. But I'm torn in that, my neighbor and I have had a partial wall with oleanders, and just the animals have never been sick. They've never eaten them. It's just never been an issue. And it's just tough. It's a tough one. And then, Jeff had commented, we get in the middle of a neighbor dispute, and we change an ordinance based on that, and trying to help a group of people or an individual. And we end up with unintended consequences that we don't find out until down the road. And sometimes that really mixes things up. And so, this is just a tough one. I understand where these horse owners are coming from. I understand how important the animals are. We have these large animals ourselves, and so it's tough.
Anyone else?
I put this out on the website next door, and I received a lot of comments, both pro and con. But the one that struck me the most was a lady wrote that her and her husband have dogs and kids. And a new neighbor moved in and planted oleanders on the fence between them. She went over, she's very concerned about the toxicity of it. She went over and talked to that neighbor. And the neighbor pulled them up, took them back to whatever store they got, and planted something else. And that was a neighborhood dispute that was resolved between neighbors. And that's what I see this as, is a neighborhood dispute. And it sounds like, from what Mr. Cross said, that problem's been resolved. That he cut it down, the wind didn't bring any leaves over, and the barrier, your comment was the barrier works. So it seems to me that this has been resolved. So I don't see why we need to step into an ordinance.
Anyone else?
First of all, I don't think that there's anyone here that doesn't understand the importance of horses in our community. I was a past horse owner. After my husband passed away, I had to sell my horses. We all know how heartbreaking that is, not to just have one die, but to have to sell them. I still own 5 acres in the horse area. That poisonous is poisonous. And for us to limit a poisonous plant to one particular area or one particular animal is not what we're here for. We're here for the entire community, not just one segment who gets to come before us and present something. We have to be here for everybody. And to have this so limited to horses only, it's inadequate. It doesn't serve any purpose. I don't ever want to put city staff in the middle of a dispute, because just what brought us here to begin with, being a neighbor dispute, there's other avenues to settle that, and it has to be neighbor to neighbor. And just for one instance, if there was, because there are a lot of people in the horse area that don't have horses. They just want to live on a large lot, have their plants, have their privacy. So someone's there and they have their large acreage landscaped. The acreage next to them's vacant, but now a horse owner moves in. How can we possibly ask them, where they have an investment made, they've put in their plants, they're enjoying it, you can notify them, by the way, maybe you didn't know, but that is poisonous to horses, can you keep it trimmed up? I'm all for, in our landscape design guidelines, say warning, but I wouldn't list just the oleanders. I would list all of the 10 that are on the website that are poisonous. To only do oleanders is only doing 1/10 of the job. So why would we go through all of this and not name all of the plants? And there's a long list of them. And it goes back to all of these plants are readily sold in Walmart, in nurseries, throughout the state, throughout AJ and surrounding communities. Can we notify everyone to stop selling them? I mean, that's an impossibility. So for us to have an ordinance banning them, I don't think is the correct avenue. In our landscape design guidelines, I'm all for a warning, a huge warning, and listing all 10 plants that are poison, most common 10, because I know there's more than 10, that are poisonous to horses, dogs, cats, but mainly and most important to humans. This doesn't fix a neighbor-to-neighbor problem. I've trimmed my neighbor's bougainvillea that grows over the fence and was blowing in my swimming pool. He was good with that. You work with the people. And sick horses happen for a lot of reasons. I lost a horse because they got into my chicken feed. I mean, a lot of things can happen, but because my neighbor has oleanders, and I say, well, he must have got into some of the oleanders, then it becomes a witch hunt to who has the oleanders around here. And how can we expect to put city staff in the middle of that? I think it would be an impossibility. We have to worry about the entire city, not just the horse community, not areas that currently don't have horses but are allowed to have horses. We have to look at the whole city and not just one facet of it.
Any more discussion?
I would just like to reiterate what's already been said. I grew up in South Dakota, rode horses all my life. You know, I own a property within the central part of the city. Obviously, I can't have a horse in there legally. But I agree with what's all being said here. The horse owners and what they bring to the city is, you know, really, there's no way to measure the economic benefit that it brings to us. Along with the other segments of our city and of everything that you want to talk about, the motorcyclists, the winter visitors, just the business owners, just the people who own houses, everything that goes along with it. But to just reiterate what Councilmember Evans said here, this is just too vague and it leaves too much to be for interpretation and for possible conflict with city staff when they might rule something other than what one of the neighbors wants. I just don't think that this is appropriate. You know, just a month ago, we had another issue that we had to decide if we wanted to rule on just a specific area of town, and this is the same thing. We are here to look out for the benefit of the city, the people we're responsible for, not just one individual or a small area of it. So,
Chip?
Yeah, to comment a little bit on the aspects of I'm going to say the economic impact that the winter visitors that have horses, I'm going back to equestrian, but have horses in it. I talked to 3 businesses in our community to see what I'll say, impact that the increase in sales that occur in the winter months versus the summertime when all of us are here year-round. And this is strictly areas where they are doing equestrian, I'll say, sales. Not necessarily sales of animals, I'm talking about sales of supplies, to whether it's tack, whether it's feed. And it goes anywhere from the one place, the highest one, was that they have an increase of 42% in the wintertime versus the summer, to the lowest one was 26%. So you see the impact that the winter visitors have that have, again, horses that come down to our community. It is an attraction. There is a lot of people that come. As you all know, I'm the president of the Arizona Horse Council, and Apache Junction is known for being equestrian, or horse-friendly. Keep using the word equestrian, but horse-friendly. And I think more than anything else is the people that have the horses would like some, I'm going to say, reassurances that the community wants to keep it that way. We have seen an increase in, I'm going to say, the sale of property for inside our community that have not brought in horses back to the property. We're also seeing a large number of people that are still wanting to come and visit in our area. So to make a proper balance on this, I think one of the things that the horse community is wanting to do is just a reassurance that if there has a problem like this, that they've got somewhere to turn to help them address the issue. And that's what they're looking for, is to someone to assist them in to address this problem, because they are fearful that it will grow. And that's what they're asking.
I see it like Chip does. I think some of the previous comments, I mean, I don't see staff spending a lot of time with this. It's just a mechanism that if there's a problem, there's a way to handle it. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of people asking us for help, and which is also our job, to help these people. The people that live in the urban areas like me, it wouldn't affect at all. And I think you can name it by name. Mulberries are on here. They're not poisonous. They may give someone a runny nose in their band. And this is something that's deadly, and it's not. So I will call for a motion.
Your Honor?
Chip?
I'm going to reword this. I move to move forward with the, and I'm going to say the July 18th to include what Mr. Cross has presented, version to an ordinance preparation with a public hearing on August 1st, 2017.
We have a second.
I need a clarification. You said to include what Mr. Cross included. What are you speaking of?
His
The grandfather thing?
grandfather, the recommended grandfather.
Thank you.
I'll make the second.
Right, you're waiting for a second. Is there a second?
Can I second? Then I'll second.
Yep, you can second it.
We have a motion and a second.
Yes, you do.
Motion and a second. Good roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Struble,
No.
Councilmember Rizzi,
As much as I support the horse community, I'm part of that myself. The reason I'm going to vote this way is it's the unintended consequences. We've had several cases come before us recently, and it just has turned into a mess. And I love the horse community. I'm a part of it, but this time I feel bad. I have to say no.
Councilmember Evans,
I have to say no, and I also recommend starting with the state legislature to put a ban on selling these plants is a better place to go. But I have to say no.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes?
Councilmember Waldron,
No.
Councilmember Barker,
I wish absolutely no harm to any animal, horses or any other, but I don't believe this is the answer, no.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
2 in favor, 5 opposed. The motion fails, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do we have another motion?
That one,
Okay.
there can't be another motion, right?
There certainly can be.
Sure.
Yes. Do we have any other motions on this?
I just moved to take no further action.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Roll call.
Okay, that was just to take no further action?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Rizzi, sorry,
Got lost here, I'm sorry. So we're moving,
to take no further action.
yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
No?
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes, and I'd like to say, I think Councilmember Evans had the idea that you need to go to the legislature with this, and that'd be the place to start. So, vote yes.
Mayor Surtee.
No.
Okay. 5 in favor, 2 opposed. The motion to take no further action does pass.
So there will be no more motions on this, correct?
I don't think so. Not at this time.
Okay. Direction to staff on proposed changes to City Code, Chapter 8, Business and Tax Code in areas of licensing, vendors, business fees, and back to Kathy Conley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last night, we spent a considerable amount of time going over this particular subject, went page by page, literally over, I believe it's an 18-page, 18-slide PowerPoint. I don't know if you want to have further discussion or if you were presented with enough information last night to go forward. One thing I did want to point out, the mayor had asked a question, a what if? What if an event planner wanted to have an event at a local business? And my answer to that was they could use the procedures that are right now under what we're calling the event section. However, they don't have to. That particular event planner might look at that and say, hey, that's too much work for me. I'm just going to tell all my participants to go right to City Hall, work with the clerk's department, which we would do. They would pay the regular license fee because they're operating outside of the event section. We would make sure they got their tax license because we have the computer in my lobby set up to do that. And in making that decision, that event planner would shut off the possibility of having anybody show up the day of the event and getting licensed and participating. So it would be the choice of that organizer to do so. But they're not required to follow this process. It's just an opportunity for them to use. And I don't know if you have any other questions. If not, go forward.
Well, I do have a couple of questions. If we were to go with this, on the one option for the fees and stuff, there's some blanks in there that.
$2.
You would need to, you need to put those in. One thing, if you do.
You could put those in. I think she's got it here,
I got
Yep.
it.
Yeah. If you do something different from what we discussed last night, and I have to go back and recalculate revenue loss and gain, I will tell you, I will not make the Thursday deadline for getting this on the website, in which case you're looking further down the road.
I think Robin's got it over here.
I wrote it down.
Anyone else? I will call for a motion.
Your Honor. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what to make a
Sorry.
motion for.
I move that the following direction be given to staff regarding proposed changes to City Code Chapter 8, Business and City Tax Code in the areas of licensing, vendors, business license fees, tax license fees, and the Health Department approval for temporary food and beverage vendors, that staff proceed with making the changes to City Code Chapter 8 and the City Tax Code as outlined in the city clerk's presentations of July 17, 2017 and July 18, 2017. I further move that the fee for the city transaction privilege tax license be changed to $2 and that we change or add a city business license fee of $50.
Second.
Motion and.
One more.
One more.
Yeah, one more.
Whoops.
Paragraph.
Oh, I further move that notification of the proposed fees and charges be posted on the city website in accordance with ARS 9-499.15, and that a public hearing on these code changes, fees, and charges will be scheduled for a city council meeting
On September 19th.
19th.
Second.
Clarification. We currently have a business license of $50 for non-retail. Does this have to mention that we are?
Well, because of the reference to last night's presentation.
Presentation, that-
That's what I,
okay.
yeah, that's what I took that as meaning.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure it's,
Do we have a motion and second on the floor? Roll call?
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
We have a motion on the next meeting dates.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that an executive session at 6 PM and a work session at 7 PM be held on Monday, July 31st, 2017, in the City Council Conference Room and City Council Chambers respectively, and an executive session at 6 PM be held on Tuesday, August 1st, 2017, in the City Council Conference Room.
Second.
We have a second. Roll call?
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
This is a time for the public to express requests, communications, comments, and suggestions. Each speaker must have filled out a request to speak form and handed it to the city clerk by the end of the city manager's report. They must have a professional manner, no criticism, and council cannot respond back. There's a 3-minute time limit, and we have one. Tess Nesser.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, everyone. It's that time of year again. August 12th, the Boys and Girls Club Annual Bowl-a-thon. As always, we'll have 2 bowling stations at Mesa East Bowl, 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We're looking for teams. We need more teams. There's 32 lanes there at the bowling alley to sell, and since there's 2 stations, that means 64 lanes that we have to sell. For up to 5 members a team, it's $150, which works out to $30 a person to come bowl 3 games. It's always been a fun day if you've never been, but if you can't bowl or don't want to bowl, I mean, 8 to 80, I don't care. You know, it's just a fun day. If anybody has businesses or anybody in the community would like to be a sponsor or donate door prizes or help in any way, let me know. But definitely help us raise money for our kids. Thanks. Bye.
What was the date
Yep.
again?
Huh?
The date?
August 12th, Saturday, August 12th.
What time?
I just
You have a
told you,
choice of
1 o'clock and 5 o'clock.
Or 5.
Or you can bowl both. I mean, once in a while, we have some crazy people who come and bowl at 1 o'clock and stay and bowl 3 more games at 6. But, you know, I've done that before, and by about that 4th game, your arm's ready to fall off. So, but that's up to you if you're that crazy. But yeah, anybody, we could use some city teams, and I'm working to try to get the chief to come up with some teams, and so, yeah, maybe the city attorney, they, you know.
Conflict of interest.
Huh?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest? Yeah, I figure so. But anyway, yeah, help us support our kids. Thanks.
Would anybody care to respond? I will just mention that they've redone their menu there. The food is better. There's also no smoking. It doesn't smell like a bowling alley anymore, so it's very pleasant.
It is a bowling.
Does anyone, if nothing else, then I will adjourn the meeting.